Okay, now that we've downloaded and installed the Umajin app creator, we can go ahead and create our first project. Now when you get to the new project screen, you'll notice you have a few options here. The first one is create a new blank app. That is, you're starting from scratch. There's absolutely nothing there, so you're building the entire application from the ground up. You'll notice these other options here, these blueprints, and these give you a starting point. So they're like templates, so you're not starting completely from scratch. You have a framework in place that you can modify, make your own, and change different elements and components out. So before we start one from scratch, we're first going to do a UI walkthrough to familiarize you with the interface and where everything is. And to do that walkthrough, we're going to go ahead and use the hotel blueprint. So I'll just go ahead and select the hotel blueprint and click create, and then give my project a name. So I'm just going to call this Plaza Hotel and click create. And then you'll notice it'll go ahead and download all of the assets for this template. Okay, once that's downloaded, we'll see our application here in the center screen. So this is the preview screen. This is showing us what the application will look like on our device. And you can actually change your device that you're previewing on. So if you see just below this, LG4X P880, we can go ahead and select that, and we can change to a different device if you prefer to preview on a different device. So I'm going to select iPhone 6 because that's what I have, but you can see you have a number of devices here. You have Apple devices, Android devices, and Windows devices. Now the first tab we're on at the bottom here is the Pages tab. And if you click through this, you'll notice the preview screen changes. What we're essentially looking at is all the different screens that this particular application has. And now this is an application for hotels, so we can see we have a little splash screen here. We have our home page. There's a booking page to reserve a room. We have some pages here that show the various hotel rooms, etc. We also have the ability here to sort of change the zoom mode. To the right of that, you have this little button here. It looks like there's 3 mobile devices, and this just gives you the ability to preview the project, what this particular page you're on will look like across 3 different devices with varying resolutions. So you can see a Sony device, a Samsung device, and an Apple device on the right. And so as you select each page, you go ahead and click that, and it'll show you that page in those different resolutions. To the right here, we have a button here that looks like a little phone with this rotation. This allows you to change the screen orientation, which for us is grayed out, and that's because this particular application has set orientation to be disabled, so it can only be viewed in portrait mode, not in landscape, so we cannot click that. However, if you were to enable landscape mode as well, you'll be able to click that and it'll show you what the application looks like rotated. To the right of that, we have this little play button. This actually allows you to run your application and navigate through it as if you were actually using it. So we can see here we have our main page. We have this little hamburger menu in the top left that gives us some options. We have the ability, we can click book now, and we can go ahead and put a reservation in. So this just gives you the ability to go ahead and run through your application and make sure everything is working. You also have the ability to preview this right on your actual device. So if you have a device handy, you can actually send the application to the device and preview it live to see how it'll run, look, and feel on that particular device. And I'll go over that in another video. To the right of that, we have this little floppy disk, and as always, the little floppy disk means that it's going to go ahead and save the project. Now you'll notice a little drop down, it said save project locally, and you see another drop down after that that says save project to the cloud. So everything you do is backed up in the cloud. It's first saves it locally and then it saves it remotely, and what that means is I can go ahead and just deploy the Umajin app creator on a completely new system or another system, log in with my same credentials, and it'll go ahead and download my projects that I have. To the right of that, you have this little cloud with a arrow in it, and this is the publish button. So from here you can quickly publish to either a preview app to app stores to portals to raw files, and I'll have another video that goes into this. So moving back to the left, we'll notice this plus sign and this 2 pages sign. The plus sign creates a brand new page. It's blank. There's absolutely nothing there. So this is kind of like starting this page from scratch. The button with the 2 pages is a duplicate. So if I actually select an existing pages, we'll select this the indoor pool and click this, it'll make an exact duplicate of that page. So we can see here it's actually been called indoor pool copy. And the advantage of this is that, let's say you have a bunch of stuff that's not going to change, you're just going to change some of the elements and you want to keep everything else. You don't want to start completely from scratch. So now if it was going to have something similar, I just didn't want maybe this chart in here, I can go ahead and just delete those elements and sort of change whatever it is I wanted to change without having to recreate everything from scratch. You'll also notice these little stacked arrows. That just gives you the ability to sort of collapse this lower bar so you have more space to work with in the preview. And then you'll notice the template and foreground buttons. Templates allow you to create templates. Usually it's for when you have a lot of repeating information. So for example, you're going to have a list of information and you want that to repeat with some sort of style. You can go ahead and create these templates. And I'll go into a more in-depth example of templates, how to create them, how to use them, and how they really work. And then you have foregrounds. And foregrounds are exactly what they sound. They are foregrounds. So if we go to the pages, you'll notice on each page we have the same foreground. You have this bar at the top. It says North Plaza Hotel and has this hamburger menu here that you can click, and you'll notice a bar at the bottom, which is just a blue bar, and it has a little arrow that lets you navigate back to the previous page you were on. That was defined here in these templates. So we can see. And the advantage of this is you don't want to recreate these header and footer elements for every single page. So with foregrounds, you go ahead, you just create it once in here. And then for each page you create, you can specify a foreground and have that just automatically be on all of your pages. On the left side of the interface, you'll see this tree view here. You can see at the top it says landing page, and then we have a few items underneath. This is showing you all of the components that are on this particular page. So if we go ahead and just switch pages, you'll see the components listed in that tree view change as well. If we select a component, we can first see there's a little arrow on the left. This allows us to move the component. This is similar to layers. So if you use Photoshop or you've used PowerPoint, it's similar to moving something from front to back in terms of how it is stacked on the page. So this text here, which we can see says North Plaza Hotel, if we move it down to the bottom, we can see now it's behind the background image, so we cannot see it. To the right, you'll notice a little trash can and the little eye. Trash can just deletes this component from the page, and the eye sets the visibility. You can either see it or you don't see it. Now you can add additional components to a page by just clicking the plus sign up here, which will bring up the component selector. Simply navigate to the component you want and click insert. And you can see there we just added a new text box. Now below the tree view we have our properties inspector, which has 2 tabs. It has properties and actions. Properties allows you to change various properties for the component. Depending on the component you have selected, the properties will change. So we can see here for the logo we have the image, we have the alignment, crop mode. For text we have things like the text that's actually in the box, scaling, multi-line, etc. To the right of the properties tab you have the actions tab. The actions tab allows you to set specific actions for certain events for a particular component. In this case we have the text selected, so the only event it has is on press. And so what this allows us to do is we could specify something else to happen if you were to press this text. So for example, we can hit this little plus sign here, and much like the component selector, this brings up the action selector. And so with the action selector, I can navigate and select particular action I want to have run. Now every time I press this text, this particular action will run. Now, much like the properties window, different components have different actions that are available to them. So if we select the entire page, you can see not only is there on press, you have things like before the page loads, after the page loads, on swipe up, on swipe left, on swipe down, on swipe right, and on back button. And so depending on which component you have in your tree view here, you may have different actions that you can have as triggers for other events. At the top of the interface, you'll notice this hamburger menu. And from here, we can create a new project, open an existing project, save the current project, or copy this project. You'll also notice project dashboard, folder, settings, and styles. We're going to look at project settings first. And in project settings, this is where we can set a lot of the defaults for our project and for our pages. So things like the default background color for our pages, what sort of orientation our application will support, and various settings for pop-ups within our applications. Things like font size, text color, etc. There'll be another video where we'll go into more details of all the options within the project settings. From this menu, we can also access the project folder. The project folder actually brings up a directory for your project. And within this directory, on the right here, we can see all of the resources that actually make up this project. So this is useful because this is where you're going to want to copy in any external resources you're bringing in. So for example, any images that you want to use within your project, you can copy to the images directory. Any custom scripts that you're going to use with your project can also be brought into here, as well as fonts. So here we can see the default fonts that are coming with this particular template. If you have your own fonts that you want to use, you can simply copy them in here, and the project will be able to use that within your application. Also within this menu, we have the Publish button. It's the same as the Publish button that's down here on the bottom of the interface. Brings up the same screen to allow you to publish to your preview to your device, publish to the App Store, portal, or raw files. So the last thing we want to look at in this menu is the project dashboard. So once you select project dashboard, you'll see it open up a web browser, and it'll automatically log you in to the Umajin site. And here we're looking at a dashboard for this particular application. And this is very useful because this gives you a full CMS system for your application, which allows you to dynamically feed information into your application. Now, if you have your own CMS system, you can absolutely use that. Adobe CMS, PIMCore, for example, you can use those. But we also provide a hosted CMS solution that you can use with your application. There'll be a full video that goes into how to use CMS, and we create a project from scratch. We'll use the CMS system to create some dynamic feeds. But this is a great way to have information that changes within your application without having to actually create a new application. If you statically create all of the information within your app, anytime you want to make a change to that content, you're actually going to have to edit the application itself and republish it. This allows you to change content within the application itself without having to republish the application. So that's a quick walkthrough of the user interface and where everything is located. Now in the next video, we'll actually go and create our own application from scratch and see how we use all these different things that we talked about.